Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Black Girl Iowa podcast. I'm your host, Emily, and today, and I say this every single time, this is an incredibly special episode. Being that this is an episode that has been a few weeks in the making, I wanted to take some time and talk about the most recent presidential election that happened here in the United States, where America, land of the free and home of the brave, has recently ascended into the seventh layer of Dante's Inferno. And to have that conversation, I have two of my really bestest friends and also previous podcast guests. I have Dr. Wanakee Carr. Say hi. People can't see you. Oh, she did jazz fingers. That was great.
I guess I think we're audio.
I love it. And we have the one and only Erika Bailey on.
Hi.
All right. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here. And we talked a little bit before the show. And one of the reasons why I have these ladies on the show today is because these women work in two fields that I truly believe, and also many other pundits, researchers, all those other great people have also said that are going to actually have a really big impact over the next 4 years, especially if Project 2025 comes into fruition, which it will. Dr. Wanakee Carr being a OBGYN here in Central Iowa, and then also Erika being in the world of finance and project management. So this is going to be a good conversation. We have a lot to talk about. But first, I want to check in. How are you guys?
Doing my best.
Yeah. What are
Out here living.
Yep. What are some of your initial thoughts after the election? I mean, now it's been 2.5, almost 3 weeks ago. I know for myself, day after, don't ask for nothing. Don't just leave me alone. I'm kind of on the same page, but I want to know, how have you guys been feeling since?
I'll let you go first, Wanakee.
I mean, thankfully, the day after the election, I did not have to work. I just happened to have a day off. So I just kind of laid in my bed that morning, looked up some more results, realized that this was reality of our country, and fell down. But then I was like, wait a minute. Why did you expect a different outcome? Why? Why did you get your hopes up in this political climate where people don't understand the difference between fact and fiction? Why did you think that they would actually do their research before they went to the polls to vote instead of just listening to someone online, no offense to us, to tell them everything that's out there? Once I kind of let that settle in and realize that, God is in control, I've been able to feel a little bit.
Okay. Gotcha. So kind of looking into some faith-based inner workings and then recognizing the true climate of our country, I think is really important. What about you, Erika?
I think I've hit every stage of grief since then. I'm currently in acceptance, because what are we going to do about it now? The day of the election, I voted early. I voted a couple weeks before the election. So the day of, I wasn't watching the news. I wasn't on social media. I was not surprised by the results. I expected what happened. Of course, I did have hope that people would vote appropriately. And then the day after, I'd actually spent the night at my friend's house that night. The next day, I was just super silent. Again, I didn't pick up my phone all morning. I couldn't handle what I knew was going to happen. And then seeing all of the exit polls and understanding like the demographic breakdown of how people voted was incredibly disappointing, because I realized that a lot of specific demographics lied to our faces in who they were supporting and how they were going to vote. And it was really disappointing. I think disappointing is the word to describe it. And then since then, I've just done a lot of focusing on the things that are immediately in front of me, the things that I can control, the things that I can do something about, and thinking about how is this going to impact me personally, my friends, my family, the broader economy in the next few years, trying to prepare for how that might impact my field, all of that stuff. And it's been horrible, to be honest, but it is what it is. So we just have to move forward.
Yep. Yeah. And I would definitely have to agree with the both of you, is that I voted early as well. I think I was about a week early. And for as much as it was almost like the hope that I had was bigger than the expectation of what I knew was going to happen. And I know for me, and I think I share this with both of you, the next day I had to do high school visit. And I had to do it at a local private school here, a local Catholic private school. And I remember walking into the room, and the room is with, there were 15 girls, different races, different ages, different classes. And they were just really excited about the opportunities of things that they wanted to do in college. And as soon as I got back in my car, I started crying because what they're going to go through in the next 4 years is in nothing in comparison to what I might have went through when I was 16, 17 years old and looking at the future. There wasn't this attack on body autonomy. There wasn't this need to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion work. There wasn't this potential, well, actually, there was definitely economic hardship thanks to predatory loans and banks. But, all of that stuff is kind of like a little bit more manageable, right? So I'm just kind of sitting in there, and with these girls, I was like, man, this is not going to be good. But I think since then, I have done what you guys have both said and really just focus on the things that I can control that are in my immediate future. But in preparing this podcast, I did do a little digging and found out first and foremost that in our history, there have been 3 women that have ran for president on a major party ticket. That would be Shirley Chisholm in 1972. Then we have Hillary Clinton in 2016. And now we have Vice President Kamala Harris for 2024. There have also been 3 women that have been considered for vice president. First being Geraldine Ferrero, 1984, as she ran alongside Walter Mondale for vice president. Then we had in 2008, we had Sarah Palin, who ran with John McCain against Barack Obama. And then in 2020, we had Vice President Kamala Harris running with Joe Biden and getting that seat. What I want to do real quick is, for a woman that mid-July sought the nomination, got the nomination in August, ran one hell of a campaign, and walked away with 74 million votes from the American people, I want us to take a moment to give this woman her flowers, because that is not something that anyone expects to do. But I really think that it speaks to the essence and the spirit of Black women, that when a job is put in front of us, we just get it done. So my question to both of you is, if VP Harris was in front of you right now, what would you say to her?
Probably pass out. I'd be so excited. I wouldn't be able to handle it.
After we did the smelling salts and got you woken up.
I think that I would just be so I would probably just thank her for doing that. I mean, as someone who, I'm half Black, half white, and to see someone who also is biracial running on a major party ticket for the president of the freaking United States, that's huge, right? That's huge for Black women. That's huge for Indian women. That's huge for my people, for biracial people. It hits a bunch of different demographics. And she's a woman, right? She's also incredibly intelligent, well-educated, poised. She's the whole package. She's had experience in all 3 branches of government. She was a nearly perfect candidate. And to be able to look up to someone like that and say, oh my God, she really has a shot at this, she could be the president of the United States. It was stunning to see that and to watch her campaign. So I think I would thank her for being the kind of role model that she is, not just for me and, girls our age, but for little girls too, because representation matters. And now you have all these little Black and brown girls who see this person who did this thing, and they can look up to that and say, well, maybe I can be the first one then. Maybe I can run for president. Maybe I can enact all these different changes and, make my country a better place. So I think I would thank her for doing that, for having the bravery to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Wanakee?
I would just say thank you for being overqualified, because she was overqualified for the job that she applied for. And so thank you for being the best representative that we could have put up there at that time for Black, for Indian women, and to be a good representation for this country. And I think that she tried to do her best to make sure that she was showing that she was going to be able to represent everyone, that she had the knowledge base, the skill, the experience, the charisma to be able to hold that position and do it well. So I just thank her for being a qualified individual who strived to represent all of us and doing her best to try to make sure that rights were reserved for all of us in her journey to where she's at. I don't know if I'd pass that. I might be a little speechless instead.
Right.
I'm dramatic. It's fine.
But I mean, I'm just very appreciative of what she did. And so I don't like necessarily like putting people up on too much of a pedestal. But what I do appreciate is that she was right for the job. And it's unfortunate that people couldn't see that she was the better person.
Yeah, and I think I would echo what Erika said about being this intersectional leader. When I look at someone like VP Harris and I see everything that she has done, I also think how she did it was not by the book. So when I say that, I mean, she did go to one of the top schools in the country, but it wasn't a PWI, it was an HBCU. And then she pursued a career and a degree in law. Then she went on to become, a lawyer, attorney general, U.S. senator, you know what I mean? And then she didn't do it in the way that a lot of others do things. Like, she didn't get married until later in life. She does not have any children. You know what I mean? She is one of those people that I think for me is the true embodiment of I don't need to fit anybody's mold but my own. And I would say that that's one of the things that I really appreciated about VP Harris. But I also appreciated the fact that she was more than willing to engage with so many different people on so many different levels in that 109-day period of her campaign. And kind of like with Barack Obama, she encourage hope, and she picked a fantastic VP candidate in Governor Walz. And, we all know Governor Walz. We do. I mean, we're from the Midwest, right? So I would just say for her, thank you for showing a path that is often not taken and showing that you can truly be a game changer, be someone that does things in her own right when she wants to, not based on what society thinks that she should do.
Mhm.
And then also that she deserves more than this country was ever going to give her. Because at the end of the day, I will absolutely say this on this podcast, the only reason why she did not get this presidency is because there are too many people in this country that do not want to see a Black woman running things. And it just is what it is. So at least that's my opinion. I understand if maybe you two don't have the same one.
No, I think, yeah, I'm
I
in
agree.
line. Yeah.
And I feel bad. I almost feel bad for her because she got almost placed into an impossible position.
Mm-hmm.
Because I almost don't know, unless it was another white male running up against Trump with almost similar tenor, I don't know if they would have won. Because what the country thinks that they were looking for at this time, she didn't even have a chance to counteract that with only 100 days of the campaign.
Right.
Like, I feel like her campaign was just growing and building, and then boom, here's the election. Because she, as many times we are the ones who come in to fix stuff. And so she was brought in to fix things, but she wasn't given the full opportunity and time to be the best that she could be.
Correct. And, we already know who can take responsibility for that. And the Democratic Party is going to have to take responsibility for that. But that could be a conversation for another podcast. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into some of these results and all of those things. So we look at the Electoral College. Trump had 312 12 votes. Harris had 226. So Trump not only won the Electoral College, but he also won the popular vote, which is another thing that makes me sick to my stomach. With 76 million votes. Harris had 74 million, but it was also estimated that 15 million people in this country did not vote at all, which is another thing that is incredibly frustrating. When we look at the breakdown of where we are for where we live specifically, and then we'll go by sex and race, because there is something I really do want to talk about. When we look at the state of Iowa, Iowa is made up of 99 counties. Of those 99, only 5 were blue. And that would be Polk County, Story, Blackhawk, Lynn, and Johnson counties. What you need to know as someone that is not from Iowa, those 5 counties, 3 of them are where our public universities are. Iowa State University is in Story County, University of Northern Iowa is in Blackhawk, and the University of Iowa is in Johnson County. Something similar for the state of Missouri. Missouri is made up of 114 counties. Only 3 were blue. Jackson County, Boone, and St. Louis County where Kansas City, Missouri is in Jackson County, Columbia is in Boone, and St. Louis is in St. Louis, and there are major universities there as well. So we're from the Midwest. We know where we are. Is there anything surprising for either of you about where our states landed? I think for me, the only one that was surprising was that we had 5 counties instead of 3. I was a little surprised to see even Story and Lynn County, even though Story County is where Iowa State University is. But as for both of you, for living in Iowa and in Missouri, anything surprising?
I don't think so. Those are the areas with the highest metropolitan population as well in the state outside of. And those are also the areas where the most minorities are populated in the state, where the most probably educated people are populated in the state. So they have, for the most part, always been our Democratic stronghold in Iowa. And in Missouri, I mean, I live there in residency, but I've been away from around. That also doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. What about you, Erica?
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. So northern Kansas City is also in Clay and I think Platte counties. But northern Kansas City is also, it's just not a very like racially diverse area up here. So I wasn't surprised that they went red at all. I'm honestly surprised that there were as many blue votes in Missouri. It's a really conservative state. And I don't think, like when we talk about conservative states, we often talk about southern states. And Missouri just isn't always mentioned in that. But it's a really conservative state. And people are surprised by that because they think St. Louis and Kansas City, sure, those are racially diverse and culturally diverse areas, but it's still super conservative. So I wasn't surprised by that.
Right. And you know, and I think too, you know, it just really goes to show that, again, it always seems like it is the culturally diverse places that do carry the burden of the state, right? The places in our states that have the most of the state's population, those ideologies don't exactly go out into all of these other communities. But then when you start seeing that, you know, healthcare and Medicaid, those funds are being cut, Social Security, public education, those are the communities that are going to hurt worse than ours. You know what I mean? Because we are in those bigger areas. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about then is the breakdown of sex by race in those votes. And this has been a really big thing. And I remember saying on a show that I did earlier this fall about the election specifically, is that white women were going to be the deal breaker, because the majority of white women voted for Trump both times, in 2016 and in 2020. And lo and behold, it happened again. While 92% of Black women voted for VP Harris and Governor Walz, 52% of white women voted for Donald Trump. I have thoughts, but I think that with that happening, what we saw almost immediately was this pouring out of Black women tapping out. So Black women not putting themselves in the line of fire for the betterment of everyone. And it's been all over social media where Black women are basically saying, you know what, I'm taking a break for the next 4 years. I'm not marching for no causes. I'm not protesting. I'm not hashtagging. I'm not doing any of that. Before we kind of talk about the social media thing, or we can kind of talk about it all together, what are your thoughts on that 52 of white women that voted for Donald Trump?
You know, I think my eyes just glossed over when I saw that. Like, I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, that's got to be a typo. You know, I have friends who, well, now I'm looking at like, how did you vote? Because I don't know a white woman personally in my life who I would have expected to vote for Trump. But statistically speaking, half of them did. You know, it's both surprising and not surprising because of how they voted for him the first time around. But I guess it's surprising this time because of the moves that he already made to take away women's rights and all of the things that, what is it, Project 2025? I forget the number behind it. Doesn't matter. Talking about they're going to do things like completely outlaw abortion care, but also like procedures that have to do with that are not abortion, right? I'm talking about they want to outlaw birth control, IVF. These are all things that not just women of color need, right? And they don't seem to care about that. They want to for whatever reason, voted for Trump, and they don't care how that's going to affect them, or they don't think it will affect them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild to me. It is insane to me that they voted in a way that they know, like, it's like, what is that saying? Like, they're going to be surprised when the leopard starts eating their face.
Yeah.
Like, they're coming for you too, girl. Why did you vote for him? It's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we know that Black women are the most educated, like, demographic in this country. And I think the ability that a lot of us are educated, even for those who are not, we're not only thinking about ourselves, we're always thinking about other people. Where they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about themselves. So what they think, oh, voting for him is going to help me in the economy and blah, 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 blah. But they're one issue voters. They're only voting on one thing. Or I think, honestly, they're just listening to these clips. They're not actually listening to what he's like fully saying. Because one moment you'll hear Trump talk about how he's not going to ban abortion and that he won't impose XYZ legislation. And then the next day, if you go to his rally, he's talking about how he's going to allow that to happen. So people are going to believe what they want to believe. And if they don't, they're taking the sound bites that benefit them and say, oh, he's not going to do that. Well, that's fake news. When all that is lies, you're just believing lies. I hate the term misinformation. No, you're being lied to.
Yeah.
Right. Those are lies.
Right.
I think they were a little bit more gullible to believe some of this crap. And we've already been played in our lives and in our ancestry from white men. So we are going to fall for the bull crap. And I think that's what we're seeing is some of them don't care about themselves, and some of those just don't care about anybody else but themselves. And then they want their agendas to go through just like their white husbands.
Yeah.
And then the other half of them are just too, I don't want to say stupid. I think that's true. But too ignorant to understand how economics and government works.
Right. And I also think too, Wanakee, you bring up a really good point about how, Black women are the most educated demographic in this country. Between the three of us, there are 5.5 degrees and however many years of experience. And I say half because I still got to write my final and graduate. I'm working on it. But that really speaks to the fact that, we have 6 degrees, 5.5, almost 6 degrees between the three of us, right? We can see the writing on the wall. We can identify what is a quality candidate and what is not. We know the difference between a truth and a lie. And I feel like one of the reasons why white women voted the way that they did is because, as per usual, they know that, they have this idea, right, that their best interests are also being thought about, right? There really hasn't been too much of a need for white women since they got the right to vote to really push back on those societal demands that men created for them, And I do think that to a certain extent, because they haven't had to fight, because they haven't had those times in their lives where people have played in their face and you're like, okay, cool, you're going to do this to me one time, but it's never going to happen again. Though that 52% of women has been able to live in this naive cloud to think that, I know I'm going to be taken care of. And it's just like, but here's the thing. Everybody else has been taken care of for you because the number one benefactor of DEI initiatives, of affirmative action, is always white women. And I think for me, that's what is really frustrating about this. What is incredibly frustrating is that, we saw all of these Zoom calls and marching and all of this other stuff from white women, but it's almost like it always just happens too late. You know what I mean? Like, and then another thing that I saw on social media, and I actually commented about this and I made a video, was that the 47% of white women were going to wear blue bracelets to show Black women that they voted for everyone and they voted for Kamala Harris and that they were a safe space. I have my thoughts already out there, but for you both specifically in your fields, does that blue bracelet signify anything to you?
Not a
Yeah,
thing.
it signals I need to stay away from you. You're weird. Like, why do you have on a blue bracelet? Like, that's goofy. That just, it really tells me that you're out of touch. You don't understand anything. If a white woman came up to me and was like, "Hey, I got my blue bracelet," girl, get the fuck out of my face. It is weird behavior to me to virtue signal with a blue bracelet. And also, anybody can buy them. That doesn't tell me that you're a safe space at all. So
Exactly.
what tells me you're a safe space is the way that you act, it's the way that
Mhm.
you act. Okay.
Mhm.
The way that you act.
Mhm.
How are you moving around in the world? What things are you saying? Who are you hanging out with? Where is your activism? Show me that you're a safe space, because I don't care about the blue bracelet. And if I knew a white woman personally who wore one, we can't be cool anymore. You're being weird. Stop.
Yep. Yeah.
I think she said it all.
Yeah. She really did. She really did. I remember hearing that, and I immediately thought about those pink hats, those pink vagina hats in
Girl.
2016. I
Yeah.
remembered the safety pins. And then I also remembered all of the things that we learned in history class about other virtue signaling that happened that actually was to the detriment of oppressed people. Because we heard about all the time, right? Like in the Holocaust, like Jews thought that they were safe, but really they were literally just walking right into the hands of Nazi sympathizers, And it's so wild to me that instead of actively voting or actively doing the work to be an ally, it's always, well, let's just put a Band-Aid on this and make it better. And that absolutely tells me nothing. And I think, too, what we've kind of seen on social media over the last couple of weeks. Okay. And I've been in these TikTok streets. Social media is so weird right now. Let's talk
It's
about
mad
it.
weird.
It's mad weird right now because you have white women posting about these bracelets. Then you have white Trump supporters making videos saying that Harris supporters are going to start jumping them. And I'm trying to figure out who said that. And actually, it came down that someone started that rumor.
Of course they did.
What cracks me up about this whole thing is that, let me get this straight. Your candidate won, okay? You have what you want for the next 4 years and beyond, because we all know that if you learned anything in civics, what a president does in 4 years will be seen within the next 10. But it's wild to me, just this really disgusting rhetoric that is now happening that is essentially deepening division in the country, but then also hearing people say gross things like "your body, my choice." Like stuff like that is just so unsettling to me. And I think we'll get into talking about Black women taking a break. How have you guys been receiving some of the stuff that is happening on social media?
I find some of it delightful. These people that are crying into the camera talking about, "Oh, my grandma disowned me because I voted for Trump." Like, girl, okay, so granny's with it. Where were you? Like,
Period.
you made the bed, now lie in it. These are the
Mhm.
consequences of your actions, because it's not a matter of we voted differently. We have a difference in morals. We have a difference in how we think about other people and how we treat other people. I can't be cool with you if you're supporting a political party that is against everything that is right. Like, be serious. So I've been finding it kind of fun to see all these people that are losing their minds because they're finding out that we don't want to be their friend anymore. Grow up. Also, somebody who's going to be your friend. Not everybody's your friend. Relax.
Part. And
Right.
real quick though, that girl, she made her grandma mad. And I'm trying to think. Now, granted, my grandmother's passed away when I was younger, but I just could not imagine doing anything to royally piss off a grandparent. Like, I feel like your grandparents are supposed to be like those people that even when you mess up, they are like still got your back. But if
Right.
you had Nana telling you, "Hey, I need you to run back my sweater,"
Right.
yikes.
I ain't
What
never
did
make
you
my
do to
grandparents
her?
mad. I don't, yeah,
The social media stuff, it has me cracking up. I mean, I'm on TikTok because I didn't need that additional distraction in my life.
fair enough.
But my Instagram is open a lot. So right now my algorithm is a lot of like Democratic, or more liberal leaning like posts, which
Mm-hmm.
be having me crack up. But right after the election, I want to say it was the next day or maybe 2 days after, there were some real that were going around saying like all the Democratic states are the same states that you can own a raccoon. Like, and so that's why Democrats are so stupid, and that's why they did vote for Trump. And I'm like, it don't even make no sense.
Makes no sense.
Like, The
What
most
is the
liberal
correlation?
laws about owning animals are actually in the
The South.
Republican states. That's why a lot, or not even the South, like a lot of the more Republican-leaning states actually have more lax laws when it comes to owning like illegal animals and exotic
Mm-hmm.
animals, which are the exact opposite math. It's like, I think you actually just flip the math. But like, people believe they're like, yeah, they're so stupid. Yeah, yeah. And it's like, you believe, and like, these have like a million likes because people believe this stuff. And it just let me know how uninformed and then how ignorant our country just remains to be. So sometimes I'm like, this makes me sad that this is what's out here in terms of like, we just don't have enough, like, people don't have education to do like a basic research project. Do we not? And like, people don't understand how tariffs work or just basic civics. I can understand you maybe not don't know what a tariff is,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't understand that there are three branches of government, what their basic powers are,
Right.
and then what economy and what our the U.S. economy looks like and how it works in its basics and the supply, demand, and the international domestic trade basics. This is high school. You didn't have to go to college for this, so you shouldn't need to have a college education to understand this. So if you made it through high school, you should have some of this down. So it just made me. I was like, dang. But then there's the other half of me that be laughing at people because some people that I follow are hilarious,
Right.
and they'll commentary on stuff, and so that keeps me going. And it is nice to see that there are still people out there who are going to do some fighting for things because we can't just sit idly by at the sidelines for everything. But I think we can. I think as Black women, we have our ability to pick and choose what we want to advocate for ourselves now
Mhm.
because nobody else is advocating for us.
Right.
Right, exactly. And I think the thing that has I really liked about seeing on social media is how Black women are really showing support for one another. I
Mhm.
will also say that I do think that 47% of white women that did vote for Harris, I feel like while some of them need a better understanding of virtue signaling and fake allyship and what performative allyship looks like and things like that, I do also feel that the ones that are calling out their family members and the ones that are, really wanting to get to the root of what the issue is, those are the ones that are actually doing the work. But what I've also seen is this boom in Black women supporting one another, and it goes far beyond likes and views. It goes into, people becoming new customers of some of their small businesses and seeking them out for different help and understanding. And it it really seems like for so many resources that Black women are usually giving out for free amongst the masses, we're it's almost like we're giving it out to each other because we all know that these next 4 years aren't going to be as easy.
Mhm.
Wanakee, you bring up a really interesting point about the fact of a lot of things that were addressed in Project 2025, people don't have a good understanding of. And so I looked into it, and the top 3 Google searches since the election, and these were like within like 7 days of the election, are number 1, how to change my vote. And this is in states where Trump won. And according to Newsweek, Iowa generated the highest number of vote change inquiries, specifically in Des Moines, Ames, Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, Iowa City, and Dubuque areas, which is so wild to me. The other one is, what will tariffs increase inflation? And did Biden drop out? Now, as you both know, I have 2 nephews. They are 14 and 16. They have had phones since they were probably like 10 and 12 years old. And as their auntie, every single time, well, Emmy, what does this mean? What does that mean? I always tell my nephews, Google it. Literally. I
It's true.
Google all
Yeah.
the time. You know what I mean? And what cracks me up about this is other Google searches, like what's the difference between Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. Searches like that are out there and they're prevalent. And it really makes me worry about defunding public education because obviously public education is a problem if these basic 8th grade civics level things are not understood or people don't even have the autonomy to just pull up Google. So what are
But
your
that's what they
guys'
want.
Say it again.
It's my thought. That's what they want. They don't want you to have the education enough to be able to stand up against them. So that's why they're starting by dismantling education first. And now they're branching out into other areas of your life. So one is infiltrating the schools and dismantling your ability to be educated. And then from there, if you don't have the education to get yourself out of the situation that you're in, you're going to be stuck in a hole. And I wish people realize that. That's why that's how they kept the slaves down. They went teach black folks how to read. Because they knew that if we read, we'd have power to understand what was going on outside of our area. I mean, the more that they continue to decrease funding, try to gerrymander what's being taught in the schools, the more we won't have the knowledge of our history to move forward and make sure that it doesn't repeat itself in its future. Because that's what's happening here. So we're seeing a slide backwards in all the wrong kinds of ways instead of moving forward with progressing our society. We're going back. We're about to go back, and I feel like we're leaping into Reconstruction era. We're about to hit into Jim Crow here in a moment. And so, but if you don't have the ability to read, because that's what's happening, a lot of these kids are getting passed on through the public school system and can't even read, let's learn about civics and econ and government, that they aren't going to be able to know how to decipher and understand what's true, what's not true, have any sort of like reasonable thinking skills or intellectual thinking skills to understand when they're getting played. And so that's exactly what's happening right now, is that a whole bunch of people are getting played because we're like, just with this young white male demographic that voted for him, that voted for Trump, a lot of them don't have the educational resources to understand what was real and what wasn't. Outside of he just seems like a cool guy. And realizing that's not the reason why you vote for a president. I don't know why they think he's cool. That's the story.
Right.
I mean, so with Project 2025, they're going to continue to dismantle funding and education from not only a federal level, but also from a local level too, because a lot of these folks voted on par in their local elections as well.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. You know, I think back to all the things that I know about the government, over half I learned just as an adult, operating in the world, Googling things, but the ability, like the discernment of, telling fact from fiction, sometimes it's super easy, right? Sometimes people really struggle with it though, is being able to Google something, to literally just Google it, find a reputable source, understand what is going on, what you're being told, because even as a Democratic voter, I don't just listen to what a candidate has to say. I Google it. I understand what is their record, what do all these things mean. And I think that the rise of social media and having so much information just delivered in a swipe has made people super lazy. They think for some reason that if somebody made a video about it, it must be the truth. And that's not the case. Politicians lie all the time. And to your point, Wanakee, we can hear Trump say one thing over here, and then 2 minutes later, he's saying something completely different. We have lost the art of discernment and being able to just do a little bit of, it doesn't even require that much. Do a little bit of research and understand what is the lie here. How is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect people I love? And dismantling the partner's education is only going to make that worse. That's the point. So,
yeah. And, I also think too, we can probably go into a little bit. I did write down some of his administration picks. And, you guys already know I am a professional wrestling diehard. I love WWE. I usually always go to Monday Night Raw whenever it's here. Naming Linda McMahon as the Secretary of Education is probably one of the most disheartening things I have ever heard in my life for a lot of reasons. But one of the primary ones is that, like, the majority of his picks, she is cloaked in controversy because she is currently named in just about every lawsuit that her husband is named in that has a basis in sexual assault, racketeering, all of those things. And it's just super gross. And also the fact that she's also a proponent for the voucher program in private education, which takes state tax dollars and puts it towards private schools, which is a whole other thing. But some of these picks are truly atrocious. For example, Marco Rubio as Secretary of State.
He's probably the most qualified out of anybody that he's put up so far.
Yeah, but
he's
gross.
Okay. He's gross.
He's very gross.
But he might be the only one with actually adequate,
yes,
at least a background, at least maybe know a little bit about what he's doing.
Then we have Health and Human Services. It's going to go to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We also have Mark Huckabee as U.S. Ambassador to Israel. Oh, this is my personal favorite, Vibes, because it's kind of like a two-parter. We have Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy.
How is it efficient to have 2 leaders in one department? Can we talk about that?
And he wants you to work for them for free. He wants us top IT individuals to work for him 80 hours a week for free.
Exactly.
That's what Elon Musk wants. So if you're bored with your job, you can go work for them for free.
And then
never my job
there
like that.
was also a guy from Fox News that took a position over Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. And, you know, when I look at this list, and you guys can definitely chime in, first of all, this list is incredibly white. Second of all, this list is incredibly male, to where there are only 5 or 6 women listed. And even some of these women are extreme conservatives. And the fact that even though he has since removed himself, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. It's almost like Trump asked the devil himself for the worst people. And the devil was like, oh, here. These guys.
It's starting to feel like a hallucination. How is any of this real? This is insane to me. RFK Jr. has that wild story about killing a bear in Central Park and then rolled around with it in his car. Let's normalize making that something that excludes you from a government position. Because that's crazy. And that's like the least crazy thing out of all these people.
Seems like there's a lot of quote unquote DEI hires happening here.
Girl.
People who are unqualified for the positions, who are being put above others who are otherwise qualified based on their race.
Yeah.
100%.
White men and some white women or some white passing individuals, Marco Rubio, who are being put above other individuals that may be more highly qualified based on their actual.
Yes.
So, I mean.
Yep. And let's not even forget that he is also looking to bypass Senate hearings, because all of these people have to go before the Senate and face an inquiry. He's looking to bypass that. He's also looking to get immunity as president, and also, hell, to make it so that we never vote again. So, and then you also have people, Dr. Oz is supposed to be over Medicare and Medicaid.
Baffling.
And
the doctor is baffling.
And, and once again, it's really one of those things where this is what y'all chose. And I'm strictly speaking to the 76 million people that voted for him. This is what y'all chose. Y'all chose to put somebody in that isn't qualified, and then he's going to get more people to come in that aren't qualified. And then you have the audacity to say to Black women or Black people, well, you only voted for Kamala Harris because she's Black. Actually, I voted for her because she's highly qualified. She's a public servant. She's a current vice president. And she ain't only Black, but she's also South Asian. Those are the reasons why I voted for her.
I just find it super interesting that there was a whole bunch of Black politicians that were standing super hard for Trump. That's my guy. I back him. He's hired one of them. Where's your Black job?
Who did he
I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name, but he's in charge of, so all of these idiots.
They were tap dancing.
Yeah. Who were shoving and jiving, jumping up the ass of Donald Trump. Where are you now? Was it worth it to sell out your people?
Yep.
It's gross.
Scott Turner. He is a Texas state representative. He played in the NFL for 9 seasons with the Commanders, Chargers, and Broncos. But, yeah. And again, you can do things like this, though, and we've already talked about it. You can do things like this when people are educated. That's the only way that this is honestly happening. The only thing that I think we can do moving forward is kind of do what we've been doing, and that I'm hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. But let's go back before we wrap up this week's episode and just really talk about, as Black women, what are we going to do? What are our plans for the next 4 years?
Probably going to cry a lot.
A lot of therapy.
Yeah. It's, from a finance standpoint, I think Black women, Black people, people of color, I hate that term, but non-white people, we need to be preparing for the worst in like the best ways that we can. Even though we are overeducated, we are still underpaid, we don't have the same opportunities, we don't get the promotions, things like that. We need to be saving anything that we can, preparing for mass layoffs. Tariffs are going to skyrocket, not just the price of eggs, groceries, things like that. We're going to see everything skyrocket. The cost of technology, the cost of building materials, medical equipment, like everything is going to increase in price if he follows through on his threats of tariffs. And we need to not be caught out paying more. People are already strapped for cash, and we need to be preparing to be even poorer under Trump and in the years after him. So save the pennies that you can, $5 a week, $10 a week, $1,000 a week, whatever you have, get it in a high yield savings account, start getting your interest on that. If you are interested in going back to school, get your FAFSA in there, get your financial aid, secure that before that goes away. Act as if the worst is going to happen. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, he doesn't do this. He's a lame duck. He doesn't do shit as president. That's cool. Now you have some extra money in the bank. That's not a problem, right? There's no
Right.
downside to saving extra money.
Right.
So from a financial standpoint, prepare for the worst, because at the end of the day, the mortgage, the rent, it doesn't pay itself. You need to be prepared for it. Get certified in different things. Make sure that you are super, super marketable, so that you can switch careers, switch industries if you need to. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to prepare for that because I know that banking is going to take a massive hit under Trump. Just act accordingly. Don't just sit there and wait for things to happen to you. Prepare for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay.
Well, for those of y'all listeners who don't know, I do a lot of stuff with the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. So I'll be continuing to do advocacy for both patients and physicians alike to make sure that we have enough resources to care for patients, regardless of what is going on with this legislature over the next 4 years. Trying to make sure that we're trying to secure as much access as possible to reproductive health, whether it be contraception, maternal health, gynecologic health, cancer screening, or abortion cares. Because regardless of how you feel about terminations in pregnancy, there's a ripple effect when they're not available in your community. And we're already seeing that in Iowa. We're number 51 out of 51 out of OBGYN cares in the state, in the nation. That includes Puerto Rico. In terms of OBGYNs per capita, we're already seeing concerns that the physicians who are taking care of folks around the state are concerned about their licensure when women are coming in after spontaneous miscarriage or incomplete miscarriage, and they don't know what to do to treat these situations because the law is so vague. So I'll continue to be working on advocacy for that, and as well as trying to bring more physicians and Black physicians and of all types to the state, because studies show that Black doctors just do better. We take care of patients better on average. So just trying to get us here to have that more representation for our patients and the like, I think is going to be huge. So that's kind of what I'm doing from a medical standpoint, and just trying to continue to have a safe space for my patients, and knowing like my office is okay, my office is safe. I'm never going to turn you in or report you or let your documents get leaked, because that is a concern that my patients have had over the last few years, last 4 years, really since I came back practicing in Iowa. That patients are concerned that if they say something in my office, it's going to be leaked to someone that could potentially turn them in the future if they have a pregnancy loss, or just fear for their safety in the care of an OBGYN, the legality of things, not even just what's going on with maternal morbidity, mortality. So that's kind of a huge thing that I'll be working on over the next 4 years, from a physician and from an advocacy standpoint, just because that's what I'm in these streets. I agree with what Erika said, putting away that money, get my windows redone in my house. And they're like, won't you can split this up over a couple of years? Nope, because I already know the price is going to go up next year.
Yep.
Let me
That's
just
right.
write the check now.
Yep.
Let me just do it now.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's
Right.
going to be worth it in the future.
Yep.
And so do that. Put that money away. Start your Roths. Do what you can to secure your bank, because nobody's going to do it for you. So
I definitely echo everything that you guys said. And I think, for someone that's in education, specifically in higher ed, it's going to be really important that just like what Erika said, if you want to go back to school, do it now. Do it now, because the price to get a degree is already outrageous. It's only going to get worse. And I really think that you having that opportunity to get an advanced level degree, or even if you are just going for your AA or an AS, you need to get something that's going to really be able to get you your foot in the door and on the path to the job that you want. But I also think too, and this is really for my listeners that just really want just more education in general, y'all got to start reading books. Listen, in Iowa alone, Iowa has over 10,000 banned books. Iowa currently has over 3,800 banned books. 10,000 books across the country have been banned. We are second to Florida, which has had 4,300 books banned. Okay. Once they start taking away the things that we can learn on our own, it's only going to be a downhill effect from there. So I really, really hope that people really just start to educate themselves. I'm an avid reader, so there are things that I obviously want to know more about, but I really, really, really hope that people really start to understand our freedoms are truly at jeopardy.
Yeah.
Because think about it. If they can have dominion over a woman's uterus, nothing is off limits.
Right.
And, I know that that's kind of tough and it's almost like kind of doomsday, but we have to prepare
This is
for the worst.
doomsday. I mean, yeah, it's applicable.
Yeah, like it's literally happening right now. So, yeah, and I know that these last few weeks have been hard. And these next 4 years, there are so many unknowns. But I'm at least thankful that I have friends that I'm gonna go through this with. And we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure out how to get through it. And I really do appreciate you guys being on the show today. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
As Kendrick Lamar said, we're gonna be all right.
Mm.
We just got to make it through. You
Yeah.
know, do what you can to protect yourselves and the people that you love. When you buy a banned book, buy a second copy and give it to someone else. Leave it in a park, something like that. Even though I won't be participating in any big marches or anything like that, I'm going to do my little bit to promote education and understanding. Just do little things in my immediate community, to make it a little less painful.
Absolutely.
And I just want to piggyback off of what you were saying, Emily, in terms of like read a book. I'm not a huge book reader, but documentaries and like doing your own investigation journalism, I like to read a lot of like news articles from different sources. I don't just stick with like one news source. Is going to help you be able to determine what is fact or fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of good resources out there. You don't have to have that formal education either. Like we've been talking a lot about like having a college degree or finishing your high school degree. You don't necessarily have to have that to be an informed voter.
That part.
There are ways to get that information through various means without getting wrapped up in lies. So really just take that extra step to verify information that you heard. If it sounds a little off, it sounds a little weird, and likely is. So a little bit deeper. Don't just take everything at face value.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, Dr. Wanakee Carr, Erika Bailey, thank you so much for being on today's episode. As you all know, the Black Girl Iowa podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music, and also over on my YouTube channel, Black Girl Iowa. And we will be back next Monday with a new episode. Don't forget, pre-orders for merch is still open in my shop. It will be open until December 15th. And I do have my hand-baked cards in the shop as well for $1, $2, and $3. So be sure to go check them out. This is your girl, Emily with Black Girl Iowa signing off. We'll catch you guys on the next one.